nervous. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to yet another Two Birds, One Mic podcast. You were telling, I kind of want to, can we talk about what you were just saying right now?
Sure. What were you just saying?
Because from the last time we were speaking, you hadn't made a TikTok channel yet.
Really?
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
No way.
last time we spoke was March. So there was
Wow.
no
I thought it
TikTok
started in
conception.
February.
No, I don't think so. Did you? Wait,
I'm like,
that's a Google. That's a Google right now. I gotta actually search it up.
I
Because that'd be
started, yeah,
great.
February 2/25.
Whoa. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
so we recorded 3-1 or 3-2. So it had been
My
a
second one
week.
was made 3/9, so I'd only made one by then.
Okay. Which one was? Oh, that first one is okay. Nice. Yeah, I remember that one. We went over
That's
that for a
crazy.
long time. So
Whoa.
like, no, I feel like that's kind of annoying. So you got TikTok kind of just came after you a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, I have now let's see, 3, 6, 9, 12. I have 14 videos I've made, um, which is crazy. And one of them is about to hit 11,000 views, which is pretty lit. Um, And yeah, I just had TikTok kind of fucking with my account. But this is really cool. I think it's a really good practice. And like anytime you're doing something, there's going to be obstacles. And I feel like I was just thinking about how I am always hitting a lot of obstacles towards things. But the obstacles are rarely related to the thing itself. It's always something just in my life that becomes an obstacle. But this is a very clear obstacle on the path of like, this kind of content creation thing that I'm doing, which is, yeah, my stuff is like getting kind of banned and not posted. It's been like 3 or 4 days of me trying to post shit and it's not working. It's very frustrating. It's really disappointing, especially when you like start to get a following and people who like really look forward to my content. Like I have people checking my page. I had a comment dropped on my last video. Someone literally said, they said, I've been loving these so much. Thank you for making these. It's been making me want to just start watching more movies too. Please keep going.
Damn.
And I get so many comments like that on my video. Someone's like, dude, these are amazing. Please keep making them. Please keep going. And it's like, I'm, starting to get a following. People messaging me, asking my opinion about movies. Like they'll watch a movie, like, hey, what'd you think about this? Recommending movies. So it's really cool. And I feel like it's creating this kind of community that's kind of really interested in psychology and movies in a way that I've never really been able to experience before. So it's really disappointing when your stuff doesn't come out because like you're working hard to create your stuff for you, for your people, and it's not working. So yeah, it's a bummer, but it's funny because yesterday I was having a conversation with a friend right before this posted or didn't post about non-attachment to outcomes. He had a girl who recently ended things with him. And I was telling him, I was like, at the end of the day, and he was like, yeah, like what's mine, I'll know what's mine when it's meant to be mine. And I was like, oh, well, I take a very different approach to that, which is that nothing is yours. Um, there's nothing that's yours. I was like, especially people. Like you get an opportunity to bask in the light of another person for a certain period of time, and you never get to own them. You just get an opportunity to like radiate in their light. And some people are going to be shorter than others. But if you just think about it as you're going to have to let go of everyone, right? I have to let go of Bree, whether from death, divorce, breakup, some form I'll have to let go over. So you just get to bask in people's light for different lengths of time. And, he was just like, yeah, I like that, but that's really difficult because I'm really attached to outcomes. And I was like, well, you should really like start practicing not being attached to outcomes. And then my video didn't post. It only posted with my followers. And I got really, really frustrated. And then I was like, fuck. The, the irony of this moment right now, because here's me telling my homie, well, don't be attached to outcomes. And I am being attached to the outcome, which is I want a bunch of views and likes to, give me the dopamine hit that I'm searching for. And that's so much of it too. Like I was like, how much of my disappointment is just because I'm not about to get this dopamine hit that I really want? And I think that plays a really big part. But yeah, so it was really good practicing. Well, I made this video. I posted it. It's another thing on my page. I put a lot of effort into it. I learned something new while making it. And that's commitment to the process rather than the outcome. So it's all good that it didn't post. But yeah, that's pretty much what happened recently.
14 videos is a big deal. And I feel like a lot of those, the part that isn't quantified in the 14 hours is how many hours it took to even just edit them, make them, think of them, put the script together, watch the movie, make the analysis. Like each video probably takes, I would say, 6 to 7 hours, that entire process, if not more, if not 10. And
Yeah,
so
watching it with the editing for sure.
you think more than 10, you think 10 is a closer estimate?
I'd have to really quantify it one day, but I mean, assuming the movie is around 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours. Writing the script takes me about an hour, hour and a half. Recording it usually takes me about an hour, hour and a half, and then editing usually takes me about 5 or 6 hours.
Oh yeah, way more than 10.
Yeah,
So, and if you have, I think out of those 14, like maybe 6 or 7 of them are like full on, like full on the analysis, and then you have a few that are just like quicker videos, right?
yeah, yeah. I have some that are kind of just like 3 movies that changed my view on love. And it's hard with TikTok to really do an analysis because people just want short form content. So something, my next video that I'm gonna make, I just watched a movie last night called Kinds of Kindness. Genuinely one of the most confusing movies I've watched. I'd ask you to watch it just because I want to hear your thoughts on it, but I feel like that would be a bit selfish because it is such a strange movie that takes so much time that I don't know if I could ask that of you, but I would love to hear your thoughts on it. But genuinely, I've there are a few movies I've left that confused. New York Sindosha is definitely one of them.
I
And
love that movie.
that movie gave me a crazy existential crisis.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
crazy, but this movie didn't give me an existential crisis. Everyone keeps saying it's absurdism. And I'm like, is it? I don't feel any existential angst or anything after that movie. But I'm gonna do a 3 or 4 minute analysis of the movie, which I haven't done that. And I'm gonna start doing my kind of psychological things, but I'm also gonna start doing like in-depth analysis of movies because honestly, I'm not really being able to analyze anything. So I don't want to be limited by that's something when you're creating is a lot of the times if you are making something through the eyes of your viewers, you're going to be in their kind of prison. And I feel like
Mm,
a really genuine creator, captures the viewers that want to view what it is that they're making, not inversely. So yeah, I have to
mm.
start doing that too. I
I
would
guess
say
that's what I guess that's what people say when like artists start quote unquote selling out, right? Like
yes, and it's
when
hard
it's sweet.
not to because
Yeah.
you see how much more positive. Like Jack Harlow, I think is a really good example of this. Like he does so well when he sells out, and he does so bad when he doesn't. Like when he makes his like stuff, like no one listens to it. It's not bad at all. Like it's actually very good fucking music. Like he's a great rapper, but no one fucks with it when he just does his like own little personal shit. But when he makes the Vanilla Baby, everyone's like, yeah, I love Jack Harlow.
Which one? Is I'm Vanilla Baby the da na 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 na
Yeah,
na na?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great
I
song.
don't got no whips and chains.
Honestly, on the note of Jack Harlow, like I really liked his last album. I listened to it a lot. When I was in India, I was playing it again and again and again.
I remember you telling me that, and a lot of people
Yeah,
haven't listened to it. They only hear Jack Harlow's like kind of pop sellout songs.
yeah.
And I think it's a perfect example of like if Jack Harlow genuinely just wants to make music that he fucks with, he's going to be a significantly like less big artist. And it's like you have to be like down to do that, which is really hard to be like, I'm going to be less famous because I'm going to be more authentic.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like who does that. I remember
Frank
like
Ocean,
you remember, yeah. Mm.
for
I remember
sure.
like I remember J. Cole had that one song where he was like apologizing to Nas. Do you remember
Let
that?
Nas down. That
Yeah,
shit's
yeah.
fire. That
Yeah,
shit's so fire.
because he was like he sold out on what song was that? Workout? Yeah, Workout.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I fucking hated that J. Cole. Honestly, like that's when people were fucking with J. Cole. Like, this guy sucks. It was when he released Born Center that I was like, oh, this guy's a good rapper. Like, all right, I fuck with him.
You
But
didn't like Workout?
no, I don't like
Uh,
that J. Cole at all, honestly.
you know what song
I
I
thought
do like a lot off the album?
uh
The da, I can't get enough, can't get enough
I
of
don't
what you
even know
got.
that song.
Good God, you hit that
Oh, can't get
spot. Trying
enough
to
of
let
what you
go, but I
got.
just can't. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
dude. I just like the reason all this is so stuck in my head is because okay, well, I feel like something I've just been realizing recently is everyone has these like small little like backstories, and recently that like lesson has been really loud to me. Just like learning about people's little small little stories and being like, oh my God, that adds so much color to yours. But on J.
Mm,
Cole, like the guy that I really really liked and like was like, I want him to think I'm the coolest, was a huge J. Cole fan. So I used to like also really like J. Cole in middle school.
uh,
So I would play that
whoa.
album. I would play that album again and again and again and again. I loved that album back then. And then
That's
that
a
one,
trip.
and then the one where he's sitting on a basketball. Friday Night Lights, that one.
Yes,
And
yes, yes, yes,
then
yes.
but I yeah. And then I stopped listening. I actually stopped listening to him after Born Sinner, which is actually really funny. So it was like the opposite. I didn't
Oh,
really like Born
interesting.
Sinner.
You didn't like
But
Run Center? That's
I
crazy. I
didn't
feel
really
like
like
that was
Born
like
I really like I really like
ah.
the red one, whatever that one's called. I forgot what it's called. But I mean the one that's the workout is on. What's that called?
Oh, oh yeah. Isn't that's not Friday Night Lights?
No, Friday Night Lights, the blue one, where he's like
I don't
sitting on
fucking
the
know. That's how much I
basketball.
didn't fuck with it, honestly.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. Yeah. um, shit, man. It has literally been a couple months since we've made this. What are some major things that have changed for you?
I listened to that
You're bald
last
now.
yeah, I am bald now. I was listening to the last episode right now as I just posted it like literally 3 hours ago. And I just sound stupid. Every time I listen to one of our conversations, I'm just like, damn, I really sound there's such a disconnect between how I feel when I'm saying something versus how
Right.
I perceive it a few months after I listen to it. And I'm like,
Mm,
how do I know I'm not just lying to myself? Like, what if I'm
mm.
actually like, what if I'm like delusionally thinking I'm more like intelligent than I am? And that's been something that's just been on my mind. And it's like, obviously, you're gonna surround yourself with people who like tell you you are, but I've heard someone make this joke before. I forgot who it was, but somebody was like, a lot of guys love making podcasts because it makes them feel like they have something important to say.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and I think it's funny because I'm like, I know a lot of guys who probably would run a podcast and be like, I got dope stuff to say, you know?
But you're like, not me. I'm actually cooking.
But I'm like, but it's not that not me. I think I'm cooking. It's just like, am I one of them as well? You know, like, am I also delusionally thinking that I have something everyone has something important to say, but in the idea of like, yeah, is what I have to say any more important? I maybe not. And I think like understanding that and like coming to terms with the fact that perhaps I'm not saying anything really profound in it. But with you, what you say for some reason it's different. I feel like yours stands this test of time sometimes. Like I feel like I listen to the stuff you say and I'm like, okay, like even the stuff you're saying in the last conversation, like it stands the test of time. I think the things I say don't stand the test of time. I just sound like a dumbass.
I think that's just the bias of hearing someone else because I feel the like inverse. Where
No
like I feel like I
way.
listen to your shit and I'm like, Gautam sounds so like I'm like, dude, this man's voice is like soak upon the ears. Like, and I've had like friends who listen to your stuff, like Kayla or Brenda and Bree. They all say like you have like such a like you think really clearly and you have such a like nice voice to listen to. And every time I hear myself talk, have you ever looked at a squirrel and just like looked at their like mannerisms? That's how my like speaking is. Like my if you could embody my speaking into like a rodent, it would be squirrels just moving like cracked out, super just like disconnected, super ADHD. And I'm always just like, damn, I sound like I just took like a fat line. And I was like, bro, this is like what's crazy. Okay, so like it connects because if you really, oh my God, like it's so clear I have ADHD from listening to myself talk. That, and then I just repeat a lot of the same shit. Like I feel like if you just strung together all the podcasts, like there'd be
No.
like 90%
Dude,
overlap between
I
shit that I said.
actually really, really strongly don't agree with anything what you're saying. I feel like there is a post Kansas Mylon, and then I think there's a after Kansas Mylon. And I feel like well, that's one of the beautiful things about I think being in school is that you're consuming so much new information. You're never repeating yourself anymore. I have not heard you
Mm.
repeat yourself except for the two debts. The two debts thing was that was funny like a month ago when you talked about two debts. Like apart from
The
that,
three deaths, dog.
the three dads. I
Respect
have,
it.
you know, I haven't, you actually never repeat things because I feel like you're consuming so much new content on a daily basis that like you don't
Mm.
even have the space to repeat stuff.
Yeah. Um,
You've changed a lot, I think,
mm.
from, I mean, and we've talked about this before, but I just think like from,
Talk about it again.
no, no, but I mean, no, dude, like I just feel like listening to that last conversation, I also realized we recorded that right before I went to Puerto Rico. And I feel like Puerto Rico and after has been a very profound. These last like 3 months have been very profound for me. But I'm like, I also thought India was very profound for me. And then when we recorded the March, I was like, dude, what the fuck is going on? I sound so stupid.
I don't sound
And
like Alan Watts yet. What the fuck?
yeah, like what is happening? And it's just like, yeah, I think there's an art to being eh, part of it is I think you have to be present. I had a really lovely conversation yesterday about indigenous education, and we talked about like presence when it comes to
Mm,
like learning and just like something that's there's like a lack of mindfulness. But I think even in that last conversation, I was so unpresent, kind of to what we were talking about
mm,
earlier, which is like your mind is thinking about these thousand other things as you're having a conversation. And the guest yesterday was like, have we gotten to a point where we can no longer even go on a walk or talk to someone without thinking about what am I going to do after? What am I going to eat after? What did I do before? Did what, what,
for sure.
without having your mind have these thousand things, have we lost the ability to talk? And I feel like today, when we're right before we started this conversation, that was my intention. I like set that intention. I was like, let me practice just
Mm,
being present. Like, I don't even want to
mm.
like that's all I want to do for 1 hour. And if I do that, if I'm just present, then I succeeded for the day. Like I just don't want to
Mm.
like, I don't know, have thousand things going on in my head. Like it's just too much. Presence is key.
And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned about presence lately that's honestly been like kind of changed. There's a couple epiphanies I've had that I feel like have really been changing my movement on a day-to-day basis. And one of them is this epiphany about presence, which is that I've told you this already before, but I'm going to say it so it's in the recorded ether. Um, is that I used to think that presence looked a certain type of way. So instead of actually being present, I was always trying to capture the caricature of presence, which is the sort of prototypical portrayal of, you know, taking a deep breath, feeling the sun on your skin, hearing the leaves crackling and feeling your body, type shit. And that's cool and all. And that is to some degree presence. But what I never was able to realize is that presence, a lot of the times, is an acknowledgement of how unpresent you are. And that is sometimes the most present thing you can do is say, I'm not present right now. I don't feel good right now. And it's not like you have to attach to those things. It's not like you're like, I'm not present right now, judgment. I'm not present right now. Oh, fuck, like this podcast is going to suck. It's just the awareness of like, whoa, I don't actually feel very present right now. And I feel like what I would do is I would allow all of the presence that looked like presence to be here. And I would bend and constrict my understanding of presence to fit that mold, and all the things that sort of didn't look like presence I would sort of like kind of brush away. And then I started to understand that by acknowledging the bad a lot of the times, because that's what a lot of the people, when people think about presence, I feel like it's always towards positive. It's always towards, I'm going to acknowledge all the good that's here. And what's good? The clouds are here, I'm grateful, I'm alive. Presence is also acknowledging all the fucking bad, and that shit don't always feel good, to be honest. Presence is this acceptance in a non-judgmental way of all the bad that's there. Right now, I'm feeling pretty tired. I had like a really intense workout. I ate a lot. I'm feeling very tired. I'm understanding that in these moments, I'm maybe not going to be as eloquent and maybe not be as dynamic as I would like to be. But presence is just understanding that and accepting it as that's okay, and not like judging myself towards that. And I feel like that's sort of what's different. Before I would have maybe listened to an old podcast and been like, damn, I sound stupid as fuck, and been like, I want to like change that now so I can sound all smart, or I want to sound different. But that's not me being present. Me being present is genuinely just being like, whoa, I don't sound how I thought I did, and that's okay. And like, I'm just going to sit with that instead of trying to change that. And just accepting that that's actually how I sound. Like, oh, interesting. Um, and not allowing it to interfere with this moment of recording. And so I don't know. I feel like I sort of kind of developed a different understanding of presence that I had before, which is like presence often is sitting with the bad and accepting the bad.
Hmm. And I feel like it's very clear in just like even spending the little bit of time with you, like how you navigate spaces now. Like you no longer, I feel like in a lot of ways, you're no longer like, are you having fun?
Is everyone happy? Everyone be happy. Stop. I'm so nervous. I'm so embarrassed, bro. Whenever I think of
But
past Mylon, I die of cringe. Truly crazy,
no,
crazy.
but I mean, it just man, like these last 2 weeks or these last, I guess, 3 weeks, you know, on the farm and then with my mom now, I've just like had to take a step back and be like, dude, this time I spent with my mom has been really special. Like,
Mm,
we haven't done anything crazy. Honestly, we've just been like hanging out and watching a lot of TV together. But there's something just like realizing the uniqueness of this moment in time and how it will never happen again, exactly like this.
yes.
Like the opportunity for both of us to spend 10 days together, just us two, like
Mm,
with, not because someone is sick, not because of an ailment, but just because out of choice is something
mm,
that's very unique. And I feel like what I've been learning, I think Akash's wedding just like changed something in my brain, realizing that like there are things that happen in life that never let you go back to what it was before. And I will never be able to like be friends with Akash in like he's a single dumb kid and like he doesn't have any major responsibilities, so he can just go fuck around and like that world no longer exists. And
mm.
there's like a certain level of like, I don't know, the need to accept that change just happens. And without kind of to what you were talking about earlier, without like judging it or without being like, damn, I wish it was like what it was before. I wish it was no longer like that. Instead of having to do that, now it's simply just understanding how quickly things change and to just like con I think also when you are in a life that is in constant change, it's easier to identify the change itself rather than when your life is more stagnant. It's hard to identify change. But
Mm,
I feel like at this current period of my life where things are so chaotic, it's easy to identify the parts of my life that are changing. And so to like just sit there and be like, damn, this is a unique moment that may never happen again. Like all of us hang, like you
mm.
said it when we were all in Palm Springs, like there recently, and I am curious if you've been feeling this too, but things have been feeling a lot more finite. I don't know what changed, but something I've been a lot more like acutely aware of that in a way that I haven't before. And I'm curious, I don't know, is it in the air or what is it?
It's in the fucking air, bro. Because I have felt so um, painfully aware of that reality, and I've always been obsessed, not obsessed. I've always been interested in, and lately I've been dipping my hand back into it because this thing called the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows
Yeah.
by John Koenig or something like that. Whatever. And I have one of the words from that dictionary tattooed on me, Sonder. But I really like it because as of late, I have felt a lot of words that I feel like I don't really have clear vocabulary for. So throughout this entire time, I'm going to just read random words and then we could discuss them. And one word that I want to discuss that I've been feeling very strongly, I wish I had a different word because I don't like the word itself, but the meaning is very powerful. The word is called anchorage. The definition is the desire to hold on to time as it passes, like trying to keep your grip on a rock in the middle of a river, feeling the weight of the current against your chest while your elders float on downstream, calling over the roar of the rapids. Just let go. It's okay. Let go. And that shit gives you chills when you hear. You're like, damn.
Mm,
And anchorage, again, I don't love the word, is probably the best way to describe how I've been feeling. Um, in a combination with another word, which instead of deja vu, it's called devu, which is the awareness that this moment will become a memory. And
mm,
I've been in this combination of devu and anchorage all the
mm.
time because I'm aware in the moment that it's going to become a memory. And I think about that. I'm like, damn, I'm going to look back on, I'm going to be watching this in a month or two and be like, oh, remember them? That's crazy. But simultaneously, I want to hang on to it and I don't want the time to pass so quickly. And I think because we're in a time of so much drastic change, um, and people are changing a lot personality wise in terms of the circumstances in their life, things are becoming more permanent in a sense. And I think that's really scary is that there's a lot of permanent kind of change happening. And it sort of is this understanding that we've been living in arcs or chapters of our lives and that we actually are approaching the end of this current chapter. which is the chapter of pre-marriage, pre-kids, pre-job, pre-everything. We're no longer building up towards these people that, you know, we want to be, and towards these jobs that we want to have. We're actually actualizing it now. Towards the partner we want to have. The mystery is leading in a strong sense. And I think there's a lot of kind of grief that comes with that, that we just sort of feel like we have to ignore and move through because it's just a part of life. But that doesn't really make it any easier. Understanding that our parents are getting older, you know, like that makes, you know, the time with your mom feel so much more finite. You know, it's just understand that like she is in the later stages of her life, and like, you know, it's the days are counted on calendars, you know, very clearly.
Yeah. It's it is that the devu. I think there's, I mean, it's just, it's like, because you can, I've been feeling very disassociated with happens with which I've been very disassociated with what's happening in my life on a day-to-day basis because I'm living it as if I'm looking at it in a memory. And so
Mm,
I'm like, okay, well, and I know how shitty my memory is. So for every moment, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna forget most of this. So who cares what even
yes,
happens, right?
right.
Which is like, which is why this idea that, okay, like there somehow we have this image. And also, let's talk about movies later because I've been loving movies. The movie club has changed my life drastically. Like the movie
Hey,
club, the book clubs, like that stuff has been adding a color to my life that I can't even describe. Like all three
mm,
of them have changed my life in this past 6 months. And I'm like, damn, if we can keep this up for decades, I can't imagine what that's going to be like. But the movie club has added so much color to my life. But I say that to say that somehow there's this image in my head where you're laying on your deathbed and you're thinking about life. I honestly don't even know how many people even die like that, where like they like think about life laying on their deathbed. So many people
that's
I know
real.
die like out of like this,
Instantly,
you know, like it's
right,
not on some like, oh, I've been able to like think about my life and how it got here,
right.
and I have the last few words to say of all the lessons I've learned. Like that doesn't, that's not even how people really be dying. So it's just like how people do die from what I've seen, the people that I know who have died is like they were not expecting to die. Like it just
Yeah,
hit them randomly and they're like, oh, oh, now I'm here, I'm dying. Fuck, fuck, fuck.
yeah.
Like it's not some like chosen slow process where you're like, I'm ready to go now. Like very few is like that. So I'm just like, why am I thinking so much about how I'm going to think about this moment in the future? Fuck that. Like, why does that even
Mm.
matter? Like, am I going to like think about it 10 years from now and be like proud of my life? Like, who gives a fuck? Like instead of losing myself in the future so much, and at that point not even remember anything about what's happening now, like life is really simple. Like, I think being on that farm, like that's the thing that hit me the most. I was like, I have not been around people who have more rich and complex lives, like with their environment, with their family, with the land that they're on, but simple materialistically. So simple. I mean, I have not met many people who have less than they do materialistically, but they have so much in relation to like their relationships. And that's with the things that they own, the soil that they sow, you know, like the food that they eat. They're related to everything. They have some relationship to every single thing around them. And I'm just like, damn, like if it's possible to live like that, like what the fuck are we doing? Like what am I kind of, you know, I don't know.
Why do you think it's so? Because the thing that feels more common for me as we get older is that I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm actually becoming so much more grateful for all my relationships. And I do feel like there's this kind of subset of people where I do kind of actually feel that happening, and it's kind of beautiful. But I also feel this other subset of people where it seems like they're so caught up in the drama of their own life that they seem to be actually less appreciative and grateful, and less connected. And I don't know, I feel like you sort of have this, you know, kind of awesome ability to be able to kind of really do these awesome things where you sort of go to farms and, you know, go to fucking India and go to, you know, travel around the, you know, world and US and just do these crazy things that sort of are kind of always um, putting you in new environments and always sort of like putting you in context where you're really thinking about your life and what matters and what doesn't. And so I'm just curious, like, in your opinion, why is it that you think that people are so disconnected from like how much the people in their life matters, how much the things that they're doing really matters, you know, being caught up in the future, being caught up in the past, whatever. Like, where do you think it comes from?
Dude, I feel like watching this movie, Matrix is so fire, bro. Like Matrix 1 and 2, 3 was trash, but 1 and 2, I think really talk about this question of just like, it's not that people, here's the thing. In the movie, they give you the assumption that like people in the Matrix don't know that they're in the Matrix. Like even the
Yeah.
cave allegory, right? The cave allegory says that people don't. I think that's actually false. I think like
Mm.
I think everything ever all at once is actually. Also, are you proud of me for throwing these movie reference? I'm kind of proud of
I'm
myself too. I'm
fucking
like, hey,
bricked up under this
no,
table on the Lolo.
no,
If you
but
see it moving up, it's not the motor, bro. It's me.
no, but I think everything everywhere. We watched that movie too. I've watched so many movies, but we watched everything everywhere all at once a couple days ago, and
Oh,
like,
sick.
dude, I think that movie does a really good job of being like the dad isn't he's not it's not that he doesn't know that things don't have meaning, right? It's that he understands that and then still chooses to act in a certain way. I think the cave allegory and Matrix it kind of makes you think there's these like group of people who don't like who haven't ever thought that like things don't matter, you know, like or like there's a
Mm.
group. I actually don't think that's the case. I think everyone has had that thought and everyone also knows how real it is. But I think a lot of people with that knowledge are still saying I don't care though, because if I do take that belief on, then what else am I going to do? Right. So, like, a quick, I had two lovely podcasts back to back. The other one was this Montessori, this amazing woman who like runs Montessori schools throughout Puerto Rico. And we talked a lot about this particular thing, which is that independence is something that has to be practiced. It's not something if you throw, so people's fear. So there are a lot of books that have shaped our understandings of anarchy. I don't know in high school if you read like you know that book where all the boys go onto the island and then they're like
Yeah, Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies. Did you read that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a terrible book to read because they never gave us the other perspective, which is maybe anarchy isn't terrible. And that book
Mm.
makes you believe that anarchy, if kids are given like the freedom, all hell will break loose. And like
Mm.
you need governance and you need order. What she was explaining basically is that that only happens when you randomly give someone a lot of independence and freedom that they're not ready to actually handle. She was like, for
Mm.
in order to actually train someone up to that, you need to have code of honor. You need a whole bunch of things that people need to develop within themselves so that when they have freedom or autonomy, they know what to do with it. And so I feel that the way education is set up to where you never have to actually question or develop your autonomy, it's easier to have systems in place that direct you on how to lead your life, on whether you have a grading system of whether you know how much what your tax bracket is. That's your grading system of whether you're leading a good life or not. There's
Mm.
like a severe because the freedom is overwhelming. So I don't think the difference is that people don't know or haven't thought that life doesn't matter. I think most people just don't want the freedom that comes with that because it's super overwhelming, which I feel like is
Yes.
different than what I would have thought earlier in my life, which is that, oh, people just don't know. I feel like,
Okay.
yeah.
But here's a fucking big question. Honestly, this is a huge question that I feel like I've been trying to format and think about and ask. What do you think are the downsides of not acknowledging your freedom? Why acknowledge your freedom? When you acknowledge your freedom, it's anxiety inducing, right? There's so many philosophers talk about this, from Kierkegaard to Sartre, Camus, whatever, that we are ultimately free. We're thrown into, thrownness is the word they use. We're thrown into a fucking radically free world, and there's kind of nothing we can do about it. And then we have this option of either giving our freedom to institutions or, whatever, this illusion, Kierkegaard called it despair, where you like pretty much ignore the self, or acknowledge the freedom and move through all that pain and awareness and uncomfortability all the time. Why do that? Because I feel like a lot of the people I meet, even if they're aware of it, it's not like a linear awareness. It's like that one episode of um Goosebumps where the guy's wearing the mask and begins to forget that he's wearing the mask, and then sometimes remembers that he's wearing the mask and then forgets that he's wearing the mask. It's just kind of like dipping in and out of like, oh yeah, fuck, I
Mm.
forgot everything's meaningless. Like you really do convince yourself of that meaning, of the character that you're playing. And so why is it, do you think? And what is the benefit of acknowledging the freedom? What are the downsides of really giving your freedom and just lying to yourself, being, I'm not going to be an honest person because truth is painful. I'm not going to have authentic relationships. I'm not going to really do things that are uncomfortable or scary. I'm going to kind of have a job that really tells me what it is that I should and shouldn't do because it's just scary. And like, I'm also, the job that I'm working, I just kind of landed on it because like it's just kind of the way my life went. And I'm just kind of stumbled upon this relationship. We're not really happy, but like, fuck it, she's here. And you know, we can end up living wherever we end up living because that's just where life took me. What's the benefit of being like, no, I'm going to actually like live a, I'm going to acknowledge all this and you know, be free.
And I guess I want to throw the question back on you, which is I feel like
Nah.
no, like maybe like the place that we might be missing, like maybe the version, maybe the thing that we're missing now that 10 years from now we might catch is that maybe there's another subsect of people in that group who like are actually like cool. We have to define this word happy or content, but are content with the job that they were thrown into, and we're content with the marriage that they were thrown into, and they're just content with it all and still don't
Yes.
choose to like act on that freedom. Like it's not just like, oh, like the people who didn't do that are miserable. Like there are a large number of people who I think aren't miserable. That's the point. I think that community is the people that I personally look at in my life where I'm like, this is interesting because you guys definitely are not miserable. Like it's not like
Yeah.
you guys are just like I hate life, but you guys also
Right.
don't take life by the balls in a lot of ways. And so it's
Yes.
like, but you're okay with the way it's going. But
But what, and those people are the scariest. Those people, every time I
yeah,
interact with them, I
they're
get a
so
existential
scary. They're
crisis.
scary. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, you're okay with just, I don't know. That part scares me. Because I think,
But why not just be that? Why not? Why don't you just
yeah,
be that?
yeah, why not? No, that's the thing. Is it worth, there's just color when you don't give into that. You know, there's like this extra, I feel like there's, and we talk about it, like what maybe the way we lead our lives, what it allows us to be as creatives. Like, and perhaps like a lot of those people could not create with the same fire that we create with, you know. And honestly, they probably could not. I doubt it. They could, like
But
with
I
the
want to know. So from your like, just if you just fucking dig in right now to just deep inner Gotham, what comes out when you think about why not live a life like that? When you think about a life like that, let's say you can split test life right
I'm
now. You
afraid
fucking,
I would like it. I'm terrified I'd like it. I'm really
but why is
terrified.
that terrifying? What's wrong with that?
In some ways it seems like dying. 'Cause we talked about this
Mm,
before, right? Where it's like we talked a little bit about the shortest path, like the path of least resistance. And we're like,
mm-hmm,
what makes life is the resistance. Like the path
mm,
of least resistance in many ways feels like death. Like
mm.
when everything just like is going, you're kind of like plugged into the matrix at that point where you're just like fed, you're comfortable, you just have to like live day in day out until something like bad happens, and then all of a sudden all your like my lower back has been hurting, all of a sudden all my like body is. But so perhaps like our thinking is even wrong, being like I wish it went away. But the reason it's there is the only reason I'm even being conscious of my body. Like if I did not have that pain, then my body would have ceased to exist in my consciousness. And so the real difficulty is like, why is it that we're always striving to remove our suffering when our suffering is what makes our life we feel alive only when we're suffering? So it's
Mm,
like, is it possible to experience suffering with joy? Like that would be scary. Can you imagine? Like,
mm,
and then the question is, then why would you want it to go away? And so the question is, so you know how there's these yogis and stuff who like that's their philosophy, like they're just in pain all day. Like
yeah,
they'll like just stand and never sit, and then like after a couple days like they're in brutal pain and they're just like standing forever. Or like I've heard all types of crazy like where they're just like purposely putting themselves in pain. And then
they
they're
like
just like,
tie bricks to their balls and shit,
yeah,
and just like
yes.
hang from there, like
Yeah.
sleep on nail beds, like they do
Like,
crazy shit.
and so it's like maybe which if you the thing is if you start with that philosophy of like suffering is beauty and you can find joy in suffering and that's where real joy is, then what stops you from taking it all the way to the farthest extreme and just, you know,
Mm,
like, because it seems like what everyone lives their life on, and this is a fundamental belief, is you have to find things that you're dissatisfied with and you have to work really hard to get rid of those dissatisfactions, even if that journey makes you more dissatisfied. And that's how everyone lives their life. And part of that
Mm.
is baked into capitalism, but also part of that seems to be baked into like human nature, which is why I was reading a little bit about how so much of capitalism just like, can I say one more thing? I'm sorry.
Yes, no, for sure.
No.
It's funny because in the moment I saw your look and I already knew what you were thinking just from your facial expression, and I was gonna be like, please keep going. I saw this moment of like, I've been talking for a while, and I was like, bro, shut the fuck up, keep going. Don't break the stream of consciousness. Just keep
No,
going.
like, okay, so like I hopped on Hinge for 1 day, okay? Like
What? You
this
bitch,
last week,
when?
like
That's
maybe like
crazy.
3 days ago.
You fucking dog.
So I hopped on Hinge for because I Akash sent some pictures from the wedding, and I was like, hey, you know what? I actually look kind of good in these pictures. Why not?
Yo.
I
The
opened
Joshua
it,
Tree
right?
hinge?
No, no. I opened it, I made an account, and then I like deleted it like in like maybe 12 hours. I like thought about it. And I was like, okay, let me think about what this like app actually does, right? Because I was like,
Mm,
I looked through their out, like I was looking just through their like marketing and all that stuff. They're like, if you pay for Boost, you get 11 times more matches. I'm like, dude, the only reason I get 11 times matches is because you're choosing to block my account from actually being shared, and then you're just going to
yeah,
share it more. It's not actually
yeah.
that like more girls like me because I paid for it. You have made the algorithm to not work for people who don't pay for it. You
Mm,
benefit from people feeling worse when they use the app, so they pay
mm,
you. Like you only want to help
mm,
your paying subscribers because what is their incentive to making an unpaying subscriber feel good about themselves? Nothing. On
mm.
day when they
Yeah, you don't
first,
want people to find people. Then
yeah,
they're not on the app.
yeah, and you don't want them to find it definitely if they're not paying. If they're
Yeah,
paying and they find it, then that's good marketing for you because then they can, after they've used it for a while, they can tell people, Akash had
yeah.
his like little,
I
hey, we
found someone
found
on
each other in a
Hinge.
spot. Exactly. Then, so it's
Yeah.
good marketing then. But I was like, dude, if that's the incentive or intention, there's no way you're going to win in that. So I feel like
Mm,
when we think about what it means to be an American, what it means to be in this capitalist system, I think it's very important to also just think about like what are the incentives that others feel. That's like these last few books about education has really been teaching me that like education, the schooling system is not something that we like I built, my generation built. It's been built hundreds of years before us by people who benefited from that. So when we're like
mm,
thinking about these things, it's like who are these systems benefiting, how, and like what is my role in that? Do I want to play along with that? So this like feeling of being dissatisfied benefits a lot of people. When you're dissatisfied and you think your Nike shoes is what's going to fix your dissatisfaction, then those shoe companies did a really good job of inserting that feeling that their product is going to solve it for you. And then when you find out
yes.
it's not there, then you're like, all right, maybe I need more, or maybe I need, then you move your attention to something else. But it's just to say dissatisfaction really, really benefits some people and they will like use you for that. And so it's like, how do you break out of that? And the big question that people are afraid, I think, is when you break out of that, what if you're just okay with nothing? And that's scary. Like, what if you're okay with actually nothing? Like, is that's a terrifying feeling because I don't know anyone like that. And I'm like, I'm afraid to navigate that world alone.
Mm. Yeah, it is so insane that we will live a life of constant dissatisfaction with sort of this constant sense of chaos and this constant sense of achieving, dissatisfaction, achieving over just a linear, stagnant, like joy. Somehow that seems more like death, I think, for a lot of people. Um, it's also trippy to see your views on capitalism change so much throughout the years, um, which is also kind of crazy. I feel like I've never heard you so like questioning capitalism before. I feel like a couple years ago you're just like capitalism. Um, which is dope to see that become more nuanced and whatever. Because I feel like the like a true sign of like education in anything is nuance. Like that's typically like how you know someone like has really learned about whatever. I don't know shit about capitalism, so I don't really have very nuanced views. But I was just gonna say that going back to the question of this whole idea of like freedom and should we or shouldn't we acknowledge our freedom and live in it. Um, I think the truest answer I could give to why I acknowledge my freedom is because I don't have a fucking choice. Like my brain is not built such that I can like lie to myself. Like, and that's I guess not true because I lie to myself all the time, but it seems like I do it a lot less than the average person. And my brain is like keenly aware of shit that I don't want it to be aware of. Like really, like I sometimes feel like, and you talk to everyone and they're like, "Oh, I'm hyper aware," and I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess we all are, sure." And I'm sure I'm probably more on the average scale of hyper awareness to some degree, but
I
whatever the
doubt
fuck it
it.
is, however it affects me, I am so fucking aware of things that it's painful, dude. And like from my death to the transition between sleep and waking to the feeling of food going down my throat and the like conscious awareness of having to launch my tongue back to push something down my throat to fucking dust hitting the fucking peach fuzz on my skin. Like I'm just hyper aware of everything, bro. And I can't I'm hyper aware of like when I am like unconscious, because that's really what a lot of this is. It's just like I want to go unconscious and like exist. I can't, like I can't go unconscious. Like I can maybe do it for a couple of days at most, and then my brain will be like, "You've been letting time pass, and you haven't actually checked in with yourself, motherfucker." And I'm like, "Oh shit, no, 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 no." And then that is typically more painful than anything. The check in with myself after being unconscious for a long period of time is actually very painful a lot of times, because I'm like, damn, I don't know why I did X, Y, and Z. And like, I'm actually not very proud of who I've been being. I feel like one of the greatest tools of freedom is agency. At the end of the day, I feel like so much of what you and I are doing, it's about agency. It's about, I got to say in how my life went. If you are living unconscious all the time, like your life is just going to like, you're just going to be a passenger, and wherever it goes, it goes. And if it does go somewhere great, awesome, but you don't really get to take credit for that, because what did you do? You just let your life happen that way. And if it doesn't go terribly, you get to sort of be like, well, you get an excuse for like why your life, you get to blame everything outside of you. But the fear of actually taking your life by the balls is that if it goes poorly or amazingly, it's on you. Like you don't get to blame anybody. But at the same time, you get a fucking chance of steering the ship or steering the car to a place that you actually want it to go. And you look at relationships, you look at jobs, you look at happiness, you look at so much of what people are doing, and you can't help but feel like so much of it, it's not that that marriages are unhappy. It's not that jobs suck. It's not that the world it's getting worse. It's that people just keep doing things without thinking about why they're doing them and not being in alignment with their values, and then blaming the institutions, blaming them. And I'm not, not acknowledging all the environmental factors that play a role in shit, but it's like, dude, if you never take a moment to think about what does it mean to be in a happy relationship? What does it mean for me to love my partner? What does it mean for me to not love my partner? What is good communicate? If you don't ever actually get a clear understanding of these things, the amount of people, I bet, if I ask them who are married, why are you married, and give me a reason that is only independent to marriage and can't come from other things, most people can answer. If you ask people, what does love mean? Oh, it means like I care, like really give me like a nuanced definition of what love is. I don't think most people can answer it. And that to me is unconsciousness. It's just doing things because you're expected to do them. And if you're just doing things that you're expected to do, dude, of course you're gonna stumble into it and be like, oh, this sucks. This isn't what I was promised. Like, fuck. So I don't know. I feel like the reason why to try and live more free is because, like, I don't know, you give yourself a chance at things turning out well, and you get yourself a chance of like when you're looking yourself in the mirror every day, you're not avoiding eye contact. You look at yourself and you're like, I'm me and I'm proud to be. And that to me, I think is worth more than the pain that freedom gives you. It's painful either way, you know?
Hmm.
I would rather have my pain be in alignment with truth, I guess. So, but there's this so I had a very interesting therapy session yesterday. And it kind of actually brings me back to the first question that you had, which was, what if I don't really know who I am? What if I'm not really what I think I am? So I want to actually kind of tell you a little bit about this therapy session, and then we can kind of dive into this, which is I've had this therapist kind of on and off for a couple months, and he's a very interesting dude. I think he's very wise in a lot of ways, but there are a lot of kind of qualities about him I don't necessarily love. And so we were talking, he asked me a question, and I started speaking about uh, the thing. I started answering, and he cut me off. He was like, "Hey, can you answer my question?" He was like, "You're deflecting," and I was like, "I'm not deflecting. I'm actually answering your question." He was like, "No, you're going in circles. Like, stop." And I was like, "I'm literally not going in circles. I'm actually answering your question." And then I was talking again. He cut me off again. And then we were talking about friendship. And I was telling him that being here in the Midwest, I've noticed something very different than the friendships that I made in California, which is that the friendships in California very much feel like two worlds that come together as one when I'm interacting with people and together. That's a lot of, at least how a lot of my friendships feel. When you and I are talking, it feels like a one. When, me and Tonton and, Bree, whatever, it feels like that. A lot of the friendships I've made here sort of feel like two completely separate worlds that don't ever verge. And it feels like a lot of the times, if I'm not willing to just be immersed in the other person's world, there won't be a conversation. And that's really tough for me. And so I was telling him about the conversations I was having, that really make me feel connected. And he said something I thought was very interesting. He was like, and I'm paraphrasing what he said in my own words. It sounds like you only like dynamics where you're the center of attention. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And I disagreed with it in the moment. He was like, it sounds like you only like dynamics where like people will come in your world and like you don't really have to come in theirs. And I was like, I don't think that's true. I actually think I'm in people's world pretty often. But dude, it really did make me question like, what if I only like relationships that make me feel like I'm the center of attention? Like it's the Mylon show. Like I'm the most important thing in the world. And I'm not actually down to like let other people be the center. And I'm not down to like let people be the stars and be their show. And maybe, the guy who tattooed on him is actually one of the biggest hypocrites because he actually can't just be a background character. And what's making me feel triggered by these relationships is being this background character to their world. So then it made me start being questioned like, damn, like if I ask the people in my life, like, like if we look at each other's worlds and how often we are in each other's worlds, like, do you feel like I am equally or more in your world as you are mine? Would I get the answer that no, I actually do feel like I have to be in your world a lot of times for this dynamic to work? That really kind of freaked me out because I was like, damn, maybe I don't know who I am. And then the conversation ended with essentially I shut down and he asked me like, oh, do you feel unseen in here as well too? And I was like, honestly, yeah, like I do feel very unseen and unheard by you. And pretty much he was just like, well, I just feel like you do a lot of like kind of circumstantial like thinking and talking and like you're not getting to the point. And I was like, I am very much getting to the point. I provide context for everything I say. If I'm going to say a word, if I say the word happy, I'm not just going to say I'm feeling happy. I'm going to give a fucking long-winded thing that provides so much context to what I mean when I say happy and where my definition of happy. I might start talking about a philosopher. It might sound random as fuck, but if you chill for the ride, you'll see that I'm creating a fucking definition of what happiness is, so you know what I'm talking about when I say it. But you cut me off before I can even get to my point. And then he sort of made this comment along the lines of like, I wonder how much of like you not feeling heard is just sort of like your own shit that like is also reflected in here. He's like, I want to tell you about like what it is that I'm feeling with you right now. And like, I wonder how that will reflect to your other dynamics. And like, maybe like you don't feel heard because it's just like, it's not the you show. It was very interesting, but it put me in this crisis after I left of like, damn, maybe I don't actually know who I am. And who I am is very different than that. And I think the hard part of that is like, yes, that is 100% true. But then another question is like, who gets the say in who I am? And I think that's also very um, difficult. But I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Mhm. Who gets to say? Can you continue a little bit more on that point? Who gets the say of who I am?
I don't know. Like he had a very clear picture of who I was, and obviously that's very hard. He's a therapist. Like he has this. And I've had another situation when I was in couples therapy where the therapist had like a sort of kind of negative view of me, and of course, like I walk away from that dynamic and I'm like, well, they don't really know me. If they got to really know me, they wouldn't think those things about me. But like, I don't know if that's true. And this is the hard part is like, how much of your friendships that reflect good qualities about you is just selection bias? Like, how much am I just selecting qualities in people that I know will sort of like admire me in the way that I want to be admired, and then I can sort of like feel good about myself and continue this narrative that like I'm a good person, that I'm smart and I'm philosophical and I'm deep and I'm awesome and I'm caring. And how much am I just sifting out all the people that don't make me feel like that? So I can just create this very clear narrative that like I'm the person I think I am. And all the people who reinforce that are like awesome, good people in my life. Um, I don't know. It's very interesting. And it puts me in a crisis of like, maybe I'm also not who I think I am.
Hmm. And to add on that, I feel like sometimes, thank you for sharing all that, by the way. That was a very vulnerable kind of, their whole therapy session was seemed intense.
it was awkward as fuck. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
it's
lie.
that seemed intense.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just
it was
like,
very
damn, you
awkward.
don't normally get into conversations like that. That's intense. He seemed like he
I
was
was like,
coming after you, and you
he
don't know,
was. It was very
and
strange.
it's super one-sided because you know nothing about them. So like you can't
Not a
even be
thing,
like, yeah,
bro.
you don't know a single thing about him. So you can't say anything like, nah, but you're a scrub. And then you can't say anything. You don't even know him. So like,
Exactly. And what am I going to tell a therapist? You automatically seem like the problem if you're telling a therapist they're wrong.
yeah, yeah. I honestly, I think I don't know enough about it, but I think the dynamics of therapy itself sets many, I think it sets you up for failure just because of how unidirectional the power dynamic is. Like
Mm,
someone knowing all the intimate details about you while you know nothing about. That's why every time I have gone into therapy, I take a very hard effort to like ask them a lot of questions too, because I'm like,
mm,
because that's like one thing I've learned in traveling, which is like I have a few like big tips when traveling, but one of them is never give more information than you get. And so
mm,
if someone asks you for your where you're from, never don't ask them like you have to ask them back and get another piece of information from them, because especially when
mm,
you're traveling, you just never know like who you're giving information to, and someone can lie. I mean, there's nothing that stops them from that, but I think I see a lot of like new travelers give information without getting it back. And I'm like, y'all don't
mm.
understand how dangerous that is. Like, you don't, no one wants to be your fan, especially if you're American. People are like, oh, they just want to talk to me because I'm American. No, like some do, but a lot of people also would want to take advantage of you. So it's like really important
That's
to
a good
just like
tip.
be mindful of like never give people information for free. And so like that's why I carry that with me everywhere I go, which is why I love podcasting from asking questions, because I don't need to say anything myself. I'm just getting
Mm,
information. So the power dynamic, I have all the power. I have
yeah.
all the power. You know nothing about me, and I know so much about you. And so
Mm,
that opens up a lot of doors for you, because like even if the person is 60 years old or 65 years old, now there's a different power dynamic where it's like, and I think therapy is like that, where you know the other person can be a complete stranger, but you're completely left wide and like open and vulnerable. And so I feel like that I've just never understood like, but that compared to, so for example, I have found classical Indian music to be very therapeutic, and the journey that I took with my teacher through the process to be very therapeutic and healing. But we both were very vulnerable, right? I mean, he like put his heart
mm,
out there and sang in front of me, or like, he would, like we developed a relationship where it was very like we both saw each other in open and vulnerable ways. And then through that we learned and grew and healed. But it's not the same as therapy, where I'm like, I'm in here with the intention of I want to feel better and I'm going to tell you all my stuff and you don't tell me
yeah.
anything. I don't know. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that? I,
I honestly, there's so many things I don't agree with therapy. Truly, so many things. That's one of them, huge because, and he kind of used that against me yesterday. I thought it was very interesting because I told him that I don't feel seen when I feel like I'm in someone's world and they're not in mine. And then he said, "It's very interesting that you don't feel seen in here because this has all been about you. Like you don't, we're not here for me. We're here for you. Like this is all
he
you. So
said
like,
that?
yeah, it was very interesting. He was like, we're talking about you right now. Like we've talked about you this whole time. So like, how is
That's
that you're
kind of
not feeling
mean,
seen?
dude. That's kind of
It was a
mean.
really weird session, bro. It was very strange.
That's
Like I
kind
was
of
like, huh, like it was very interesting. I feel like he got kind of triggered by what I said because I told him he talks a
yeah.
lot for a therapist. I was like, honestly, you
Uh
talk like a lot. Like I was like, you cut me off a lot. Like I was like, and like, no, I don't feel very seen or heard by you like at all. And I feel like as someone who's like, he knows I'm also becoming a psychologist. Like it's different than like someone who like isn't.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, he said something that was very interesting, which was, yeah, this is all about you, yet you still aren't feeling seen. Like, and the hint is maybe that you need more. Maybe there's something else there than just it being all about you. I'm in your world right now, and I was just like, interesting. Um, but the truth is, I would love for me to know about him. I don't want it to be the Mylon show in there. That
Yeah.
feels honestly very fucking strange. I hate when that happens. Um, and truly, I feel like therapy is about the relationship. And to create a good relationship, you have to know who you're relating to. And I
Yes.
don't know shit about him,
Yes.
and I don't like that.
Yes.
You know,
Yes. You have to know. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. You have to know who you're relating to, the context, the how did you get here? Why are you even a psychiatrist? Like, why are you a
why do you
therapist?
care
Like,
about this, bro? Like,
why
yeah,
yeah,
like, are you
like
gonna
why are
kill
you
me?
here?
Like, what?
Yeah. Like
Anything?
why?
Like, let me not spill my entire guts to you because, like,
Yes.
this piece of paper says that, like, you're legit. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's so. All of the reasons that you should trust the person are built upon um authority. and not built upon genuine connection. Trust me,
Yes.
because you're in this institution. I'm a worker here. I have this paper that says I've done this for a very long time, and you've been assigned to me, and let it not open up. And it's not about genuine, like, oh, like, do I seem someone worthy of like opening up to? And obviously, you build a relationship. But one of the arguments is that it's actually better for the client if you don't release any information about you, because, and that's what he was trying to say to me. He was like, it's not helpful to the client if you know everything about me. And I'm like, do we know that? Like, have we actually tested if therapy is worse when a therapist opens up versus when a therapist doesn't? And I don't think that's ever been empirically studied, to be honest. I don't know, but there's a lot of assumptions in therapy that I'm like, do we know this? Because personally, as a therapist, I would love to open up to my clients. I'm not gonna be like, yeah, like fuck, like, fucking cut my dick yesterday. Like, I'm not gonna say that, but like, I would like to, like, this is who I am. This is what I care about. This is what I'm interested in. And like, at the end of the day, if that doesn't work for you, dude, that's all fucking good. It wasn't gonna work either way. There would have been these things about me, these beliefs, these ideas that would have been like cutting into our sessions, and you would have never known what it is. Obviously, at that end, they might make judgments about me before also knowing who I am and never allow the session to go through, which is why I think you sprinkle it in. But yeah, man, I think it's very
100%.
fucking strange.
And honestly, in teaching and in that, something else I feel like I think about often is like, let's say I'm paying you 65 bucks to like, and I'm like, okay, I'm paying you $100 an hour and I want to feel better. If you talk about yourself for 10 minutes, and I know when I was going to therapy for free, I wanted my therapist to talk about themselves for as long as possible. I
Mm.
was like, please, like, I'm so happy to just be. And then when I started paying for it, when I was paying for a little bit, I was like, okay, well, I'm only like, hey, you're taking up $6, buddy. You think your story's worth $6? I don't think so. Like, like it's like because you're counting. So, and that's the same thing I think about teaching as well. I have some parents who work with me who like think about the process of, also random fact. Okay, whatever. I'll get that later. But I think some parents work with me and think about
Random fact, random fact, random fact.
no, it's I mean, I was talking to Andrew's dad today, and something that he said was that Andrew's been really interested in teaching recently. And
Hey,
that's like
okay.
one of, I think if I could like highlight one of the things I'm most proud of, I would say it's the work in my relationship with Andrew. I would say that's something I feel like is very special to me. And like,
You start pupil.
like actually, like just like the relationship that we've built, I'm like, I know I've done a good job if Andrew does go into teaching, I personally would be like, damn, like I did it for I'm proud of myself. Like
Mm.
I care actually about him. And I think I care deeply about him and a lot of my other students. And I feel like even today when I was talking to his dad, I like, was giving him a lot of these like opportunities that have come my way. And like to me, like I'm like I have taught well when I'm like so committed to each of the people that I'm working with, to where I'm like, I really want you to like be able to lead the best life that you possibly can, and anything that is in. And so the only way for you to do that is you have to move past the money, 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 money. I need money. I need money. Like, how do I get more hours?
Yeah,
How do I bill more hours? How do I teach more? I need to make more money. Like, you have to literally let go of that, and to
right.
step into like teaching your best ability cannot be about. And so I think that's the same thing with therapy as well. Like, look, like I'm gonna be triggered if you're gonna leave me because you're giving me money. Like I'm gonna get hella triggered if you're telling me that I'm a bad therapist and I depend on you to make my bread to feed my family. If
Hmm.
I'm gonna get stressed the fuck out because I'm like, if
Right.
I lose you, like that's stressful. And then also from your perspective, you're like, hey, I'm paying you 65 bucks or 100 bucks or 200 bucks. Some people pay 1,000 bucks. Like if you don't make me better, I wasted all that money on you.
Yeah.
Like it, so I think like sometimes, and it's not to say that it should be free of charge, which would be great, but it's to say that I think like the whole kind of financial incentive behind just like that whole world, I think makes it so stressful. And so I'm just, yeah, I mean, we can touch back a little bit on what you were saying earlier, which is like being in someone's world or not. What do you mean? But what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to be in someone else's world or to be in your own world?
I think, in a sense, what it means is like when you are watching, when you're watching Interstellar, you are in Christopher Nolan's world. Like, he just created a world and you're in that shit and you are fully engaged. In that time, there is no Mylon, there's no Gautam. If you're watching a movie correctly, if you're a good movie watcher, which a lot of people aren't. And honestly, I think it says a lot about them. your ability to get lost in another world is very telling, I think, of a lot of things. And, you know, I went to a movie yesterday and, you know, my homie next to me was on his phone during the movie. And I'm like, bro, let, you know, his name not exist for 2 hours. Like, just be in another person's world, like, truly. And, you know, coincidentally, I don't think he's a great listener, honestly. Like, I actually don't think he's good at getting lost in my world either when I'm talking. And I think that similarly to how you get lost in a movie when you're watching it, this narrative, this drama, you know, the complexity of
Ooh.
it, you care about it, you feel it. You literally feel it while you're doing it. You leave the movie and you're changed, you know, you're touched by it. Similarly, that's what it means to be um, in another person's world. There's this quote by Jung um,
Very young.
where he says, he says, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact between two chemical substances. If there's any reaction, both are transformed. And I like that quote a lot because I think that's what it means to be in another person's world. Is if you do it right, you're fully, there is no self and you're fully engaged in what it is that's happening with them. And it changes you to some degree. You're not listening, you're not in their world as like, oh, like, fuck, I gotta listen to fucking Gautam talk about his fucking teaching later. Like, no, I'm like, dude, the relationship between Gautam and the line between Gautam and I is so slim that hearing him talk about it, feeling his joy, feeling his happiness is similar to seeing myself talk about it in the mirror. And that's beautiful. And I look forward to that. And I think I've just met so many people here that are terrible at that, that it's kind of blown my mind. And it's made me feel really alone. And what he was questioning was maybe you're not fucking great at that either, as much as you think you are, which is why other people aren't doing it with you. And honestly, what you consider a good relationship is just when people are down to do that with you and you don't have to do it back to them. Um, and that kind of fucked me up because I was like, and maybe it fucked me up because I do feel like there's some truth in there. You know, maybe if I felt like 100% there was no truth, I would have just been like, well, you're fucking wrong, like move on. But maybe I did feel like there was an element of truth to that. And maybe even part of that is like kind of told in like my partner, who like I think is someone who is Brie, I'd say my partner, who is someone who like doesn't really need to be the main character. And you can just kind of talk to, and she's, you know, will listen for hours. And maybe I'm with someone like that because I don't want to be with someone who they have to be the main character, and and you know, I'm in their light, and I want someone to be in my light. And I think to that, to some honest degree, that is true. And I think that's maybe where the sort of pain comes from, and like maybe there being some truth to that.
I honestly don't think there's too much. If I, okay, I mean, obviously, I'm also just one perspective, but I would say, like, I mean, in many situations, you don't desire attention. I mean, in so many situations, you're not like attention, me. You're definitely not an attention whore. I feel like you're so far from it,
Mm.
in a lot of situations. And then, I mean, right? Wouldn't you agree?
I think so, but
I,
fucking apparently I don't know
dude,
myself, bro.
no,
Honestly,
dude, I don't
but
think
I
most
think
people.
so. I don't think it was just attention horror. I think it was more about in communication. Is it
Yeah,
that I'm stealing the show? Am I hogging the attention of the talks? And I think maybe honestly, one very clear way to do that would be to like analyze the podcast and like see
I don't think you
how
do.
much. Mm,
I don't think you. I do. I do. I feel like I don't enjoy people who do that at all. I don't think we would have been able to talk every day for 5 years if I was just like, fuck, Mylon's talking about himself again. Fuck. Like, dude, it would not have been. But there is a possibility here, which is that maybe I was so influenced by you when we were younger that we just happened to end up talking about the same stuff. But if like I had been in my pathway and you had been in your pathway and we then talked every day, then we probably would not have been able to like I would say I probably moved onto your train more. But did my life
mm,
get better because of that? Yes. So I think like that's like kind of what the belief is in some ways. And you've said this before too, like you've talked a lot about like helping people and especially through like talking and I feel like that entails that like what you have to say will make someone's life better or like
mm.
will help them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because we've talked
I'd like
about
to
this
think so.
before. Yeah. And so I think like that belief is the one that I think is really interesting. Like
Mm.
then you'd only find people who like think their life got better because of you. And that's I'm saying you know, I
Yeah,
don't know,
yeah,
what do you
yeah. I'd
think?
only surround myself with. I mean, and dude, honestly, every time I feel like I interact with a therapist, like I feel this. But like, what's also like, I feel like common too is like I sort of feel like there's this term in psychology called countertransference. It's a Freudian term, which transference is when the the patient's emotions get pushed onto the therapist, and this therapist starts to embody their emotions. Countertransference is when your emotions, your preconceived beliefs and ideas begin to be pushed onto the client and begins to affect them.
Mm.
That's something you want to be very aware of when you're doing therapy. I felt a lot of countertransference yesterday, and I feel like a lot of that countertransference comes from like there's this sense almost deeply of like maybe this person has some things they don't like about me or like some preconceived beliefs or negative ideas before they even know me. Um, and I felt that with the couples therapist I had as well too. Um, when she sort of would mention some negative things about me as well too. But like, dude, how much of that is just me being like, oh, they don't like me. That's why they have these thoughts. That it's easier for me to say they don't like me. That's why they have these thoughts about me. To be like, oh, this person likes me and they don't think my shit doesn't smell. Like, fuck, that's really hard to think. So I don't know. And I think everybody has very different beliefs. My sister was telling me the other day, why do you feel the need to like give people like unsolicited advice? Like, I feel like you do that pretty often. And my answer was very fucking simple. If I won't, who will? Like, genuinely. Like, I was like, bro, like this world is going to fucking shit. Like people are so unconscious, people are like so anxious, people are so fucking depressed. And when I hang out with someone and it's so clear to me the shit that they're doing that's like causing their anxiety, the shit that they're doing that's causing their depression, am I supposed to sit there and be like, yeah, man, keep being depressed and anxious, even though I'm like 80% sure if you just stop fucking doing this thing, you would not be as anxious. And knowing that when people have listened to me in the past, it did help. And I'm just supposed to sit there and be like, yeah, cool. Like to me, that's not kindness. To me, that's not like goodness. That's not love. Like, and I feel a commitment to the individual to like be as helpful with them as they can say fuck off. And I'm totally open to someone being like, bro, fuck you. Like your ideas are trash. That's awesome. But I feel like for me to sit there and have this awareness and not try to help just feels inauthentic. And I feel like because of the chain reactions that happen, I feel like when you really help another person, like, I don't know, it feels like there's this collective good that comes from like you being, of course, like do it right. Don't just like start saying shit to people, like wait for the right moments. But it's just like, it's mind blowing to me how long people will be friends, have these like negative ideas or like, oh my God, this
Mm.
person's a yapper, this person does all that. And never like had an
Not
honest
say it.
communication with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been like, hey man, like I noticed you do this. And like everyone in your fucking life thinks this, and no one has the guts to tell you, like, what the fuck? How do you love that person if you're not down to do that? That's crazy to me. Like, I remember, and I'm gonna put you on blast right now, but I fucking love you because it was hella funny. And I remember when we first started kicking it, you would have a little BO sometimes. And I remember multiple people around us mentioning that. And I didn't like that. I was like, bro, that's fucked up. Like, no one's told him that. And like, no one had said a thing. And I remember I like pulled you in a corner. I was like, yo, Gautam, like, sometimes you smell like BO. Like, this is this. And I remember you being like, bro, dude, fuck, thank you so much for telling me that. Like, damn, like, no one else has said that to me. And to me, that was like the most loving fucking thing I could have done in that moment because I hated the idea of what if there's something that is about me, everyone is talking about it behind my back, and no one loves me enough to fucking tell me that. Like, that's so fucked up. And of course, like, there's the possibility that you're gonna see me and be like, bro, you're a fucking asshole, fuck you. But I care about humans enough to take that risk on of them doing that. And that's okay. If someone's like, fuck you because I just told them the truth, I'm okay with that. But I'm not okay with like being inauthentic in that way.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think like there's like multiple layers to it because one, that's part of your profession, which is like interesting where it's like people will one day pay to be like, hey, can you help me solve my problems?
Yeah.
So it's
It was a
different.
trip.
So I think if someone's like listening to this and they're like, hey, well, people don't listen to me when I'm just giving advice. I think there's like layers to it where it's like one, okay, that's in some ways something you're trained to do. Two,
I have
it's
not been
not
trained in
like
it yet. Let me just say that.
yeah, but
I'm just nice with it.
two, I would also say you have a large list of people who I feel like it has helped. But the interesting thing about help is this, in that, let's say I mean, I feel like I've seen this example a lot, but let's say you meet a family who like loves Sadhguru and they're like, I've had all these problems. And then, I see a
Mm,
lot like Hindu people are very religious in this particular way that I don't see other people, other kind of religious. Cause I think in Christianity, everything, God is still number one. Like, and then, your
mm,
pastor and stuff are all like dope and stuff, but it's no one's like head over heels over their pastor. You know, that's not really
Yeah,
like a, you're not going to see that too often, at least from what I've seen. Is that right?
yeah.
I feel like in Hinduism, people sometimes are really like, my pastor is not that they love their pastor, but as if pastor is the one who solved their like pastor themselves was
There's
God,
a
you
whole
know?
controversy with like these kind of mega churches. There's this guy who's got a lot of trouble, but it doesn't matter. Not
Yeah,
probably not
okay,
as
they
deep
are.
as what you're gonna say.
But I'm saying in Hinduism, I feel like there's a lot of just like, if someone
Yeah.
makes your life better, they like fully are like, this person is so Sai Baba. There's like a whole bunch of like humans, like in
Yes.
the last like
Yes.
100, even Meher Baba, the guy that
Uh-huh.
Sufi was talking about, like there's human beings in the last 100 or 200 years, Sadhguru, a long list of people where they're like, we give you all our money, like we love you because you've helped
Yep.
us in our life. The thing that's hard to, I think, when you think about helping is to recognize it's also possible to get someone to just like see the world the way that you do and then change a behavior, and then because of how you viewed the world, like now they also like feel better because they, you know, I don't know, it's, I'm not sure if that's the same. Like if I, for example, think Sadhguru solved all of my problems and was like, but all he ended up doing was like, it's hard to know what's the difference between manipulation and help. And I think
Yeah.
there's a very fine
Damn.
line,
That's a
you
bar.
know? It's
That's
a
a
fine
bar.
line, and I don't know what the difference is. And I think it's a thing that happens in policy all the time. People are like, we need to help
Mm.
poor people. We need to help. And I think this is what like Paulo Freire talks about. Like a lot of people who talk about working with oppressed groups talk just about like, so long as you view a human as like a person needing help and you are the person who is the helper, so long as
Mm.
that dichotomy exists and one's ego is predicated upon having that dichotomy, like
Mm.
I'm a good person because I help, you subliminally will like do things that will continue that relationship because you need it to feed your ego. And so
Mm.
like, going is why, you
You're always
know,
gonna
like,
undermine while helping.
exactly. Like that's why I was always like, I always asked, you know, like Sai Baba is this huge, so many people follow him. And I was reading up a little bit about him, and at 14 years old, he like fell on his head and then like was in a coma and then woke up and said he was the reincarnation of like the previous like Baba. And like,
Oh no.
and then he like started like helping some people in his community, and then he like grew a following, and the whole time he always talked about how he was an enlightened being. And I was always just
Mm.
asking, I was like, isn't it like, do you guys not find it a little odd that like, I don't know, he like just walked around self-proclaiming himself as like enlightened, and you
Mm.
know it, and because I don't know. There's something interesting to about that, being like, I am the person who can help. There is something I think just interesting there, because but there are people who do, which is not to say that there aren't, you know? It is not to take away from the fact that like someone can actually help a lot of people. It's not to say that everyone is the same in helping people. But I think there's something interesting about a person who like views themselves as like I am a helper. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, you do this thing sometimes when you talk, and I tried it the other day, and I think it's actually a very helpful tool. You say that, what are your thoughts on that? Um, and I was thinking about it sometimes because I felt when I did it, and I was like, fuck, am I like going on it? Am I not cooking right now? But I feel like what I do is it's very interesting, and I actually really do like that because it really invites the person to share their perspective. And I feel like a lot of times I don't do that. I'll say something and I don't say like, what are your thoughts on that? And I think that's a really awesome thing to add at the end of everything you say, because it really invites the person as their perspective being really valid too. And I think that was really cool. And I did that the other day when I was talking to someone and they said something I don't think they would have said had I not said that. So that was cool. But I think you're so right. Honestly, I think you're so right in the sense of like, if you view the person as in some sense helpless and you somehow having the answer, there's always going to be at bare minimum, a hierarchy between you and that person. And you're always going to view that person as less than in a sense, particularly when it comes to that. And it's not helping from a sense of like, let's lift up together. It's helping from like, let me pull you up to where I am. And this assumption that where I am is better. I am doing life more right than you are. Like, just so you know, big dog. And like that is a crazy thing to say. And it's also crazy when sort of like me, you try to fight for this egolessness and simultaneously you do this, this common joke in Eastern philosophy, which is like you pull yourself as higher because you're lesser. I am more nothing than you are, therefore I'm greater than you are. That's and the the Taoism and the Tao Te Ching, um, the person who wrote it and like the sort of main figure in Taoism is like not really known. There's no pictures of him or anything, because that was his belief. Was like this is like a book that like should just help people, and like I am like they can take from it what they need, and who I am is very irrelevant to this procedure. And people like wanted really push this person to like want to take the credit and take the fame. So like no one actually knows who like I think created the Tao Te Ching. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But that's what I've heard, and I always found that so fascinating and so actually scary. I was like, damn, to help others truly and then erase yourself from the history books that's the highest form of love,
That's hard as
truly.
fuck. That's so hard. That's so hard, dude.
Oh my God. And that is the purest form of help. And I think that's what everyone should be aiming towards. And I don't know but let me ask you this. How do you think, let's say you have a friend who is really unhappy at their job and they're drinking a lot of times because of it. And they keep talking about how, they're sort of kind of unhappy with their life. How is it that you believe you help this person without giving them advice and without coming from this perspective of like, I think you're a good example of someone who's broken from the 9 to 5 chains and you feel happiness as a result of that. And how do you not come from this example of like, dude, I have broken from the 9 to 5 chains. You can do it too, and that will make you more happy. How do you give advice? How would you give advice, or how do you help that scenario?
So I think this happens a lot in teaching. And I think it's something that I work very actively on to like not do, which is, hey, I'm older than you, therefore, which means I have more experience, which also means that I might probably know about this more than you. So like I'm going to
Mm.
now like teach you. I'm going to now
You're
teach you things.
phenomenal at that, dude. You're
No,
phenomenal at that.
and I think like it's like I hate doing that, right? Like I'm like I don't want to like have that relationship with like a person. Like I know more, I am better, let me teach. Like
Mm-hmm.
because what that ends up doing is it makes other people feel less than. Like I
Yes.
am less than, I don't know enough. This person knows more. And it
They
makes you
come in
feel
with their
like
head down.
yes, head exactly. And it makes you feel like you're the gatekeeper who gives someone access to being good or bad at the thing. When I hear
Mm.
someone say, I'm good at math, I got an A in my last class, that is as stupid as someone who says, I'm bad at math. Actually, I might say it's more stupid than someone who says, I'm bad at math, I failed my
Damn.
math class. You
That's
know,
a fucking
like,
bar. Holy
like,
shit.
because
Wow. I love that. Damn.
what that has shown is that your teacher somehow is like the gatekeeper of being good at math, whatever that means. Like that's ridiculous. Your
Mm.
teacher also knows nothing about the world of math. No one person knows anything. The world of
What
math is
about
so
Terrence Howard?
large. No, I don't even know who, but like it's like you could have someone who's a master at quote unquote great at combinatorics or abstract algebra. Math is so large that there's no one person that just does it all. Like, it's just not possible. It's
Mm.
like there's
Right.
just no one person who's like an athlete at every possible thing possible. Like some people might be good at basketball or football or soccer. It's just not possible to just
Mm.
be good at like in so regardless of those examples, my point is that like when you're I think teaching or kind of developing that relationship with someone, it's like really identifying who you are in that dynamic and like being consciously aware of like who you're building yourself up to be. So like again with
Mm.
the Montessori thing, this is something that's talked about a lot, where you need to build yourself to be someone who doesn't derive ego from your profession. So you don't need a bunch of kids to like look up to you and give you respect because you're not respected in the rest of your world, right? Like your
Damn.
ego cannot be filled through your work itself because you'll always fail at your profession when you do that. So like the best, like they say this for everyone, the best leader is the one who like is no longer needed, or the best teacher is the one who is no longer like when you like make yourself not needed is when you've done a great job. And
Mm.
I feel like but in the example that you particularly gave, because this would make sense if like someone's paying you, like someone's like, hey, I want you to be my psychiatrist, and then when you know when they no longer when they stop paying you is when you've done a good job, outside of if they just
Mm.
went broke or died. Like if they stop paying because they're
Mm.
like, hey, I have learned all the things that you have taught me and I'm capable of now doing it for myself, that's a good sign. I remember my music teacher used to always tell me, he was like, I don't judge whether I became a good teacher or not based on how many concerts you sang. I judge if I became a good teacher if you want to teach. And I remember always being
Mm,
like, that's so profound. I was like, damn, like he was like, I've done a good job if you also find the desire to teach. And I
damn.
was like, fuck, that's so lit. But
Mm,
in terms of like, let's say it's a friend though, so the person's not gonna like leave your life after they like solve their problem. That's a different case than a teacher or psychiatrist where there's a kind of trade-off that's happening. With a friendship, I feel like I'm not good at this. So I don't know. You're way better at like the helping a friend than I am. But I feel one way that's helpful is to also show that you're working through, like, make everyone feel like they're an expert at something. So like I think that makes a huge deal. So someone's like, "Hey man, I like am trying to cut drinking. It'd be helpful to have an accountability system." And then if you're like, "Hey, I'm having a hard time cutting masturbation, or I'm having a hard time getting up at 6:30," make up something. Doesn't even matter what it is. Make up something that makes them feel like they're needed too. So like it's like literally a trade-off. I feel like when it's like one
mm,
directional, like they need you for help, but you're all good, your life is great, you don't need them. It just
mm.
sets it up in like an unbalanced kind of relationship where you're like, I don't know. What do you think?
Hey. It's like a reciprocal responsibility
Yeah.
that, yeah, I guess that's really interesting because sometimes I feel like when you're trying to teach somebody or help somebody, that what that power dynamic does is it actually creates a wall
Mm,
where, because it's not understood how the student is being perceived and it's not understood how the mentor is being perceived, it allows you to sort of act differently than if you knew it. And when you also have this reciprocal responsibility of like, they're also mentoring you in this, it would annoy them if you weren't keeping up with it. So simultaneously, they're going to do a better job at like keeping up with their stuff because they're like, ah, fuck, like if Galton wasn't doing this, like, damn, like it would make me feel this way. So there's this kind of reciprocal understanding at all times, and simultaneously, like it's just like, yeah, let's do it rather than
I'm not shit, and this person's helping me, and like I'm such a piece of shit who like needs another person's help. And
yes.
damn, if I don't do this, I'm also a piece of shit. It turns into a game. I think it makes it exciting, and I think that honestly is a pretty phenomenal way to do it. I think the hard part is when the person doesn't say, "Hey, I'm trying to quit drinking," and you like fucking know they need to. But I guess so much of the love is just like letting them do it. I don't know. That's the hard part.
Until it's kind of the difference between you got it versus we got it. And I think like that's
Also,
a similar to like this in this case, but I have never had to help someone break out of something before. So I honestly, that's something I've never done in my life ever.
you
And I
break
think
people break out of the chains of their ignorance with math, bro. That shit's huge.
no, but I think that is one of the best things you can do. You can be the example more
Yes,
than it is that you can tell the example. Like you can be the example to where someone looks at you and goes, "It's possible."
absolutely. Bar.
Like,
That's a great closing line. That's a bar. That's a great. I love that. You can be the example if it's possible, for sure, and inspire them to be there rather than because there is this when you give people advice in that moment. There's this acknowledgement of like I'm criticizing you.
mm,
You know, like hey, there's a standard you're not meeting of mine, and like I think less of you, and like I'm trying to help you, but like I think less of you, and like I'm not fully accepting of your life. When you could tell somebody some shit, and they could be like, "Oh, bro, I'm happy with how much I drink." Like, what the fuck? Like that's crazy.
mm.
Like, oh damn, cool, great. So yeah, I actually really like that a lot. I actually do think that was very helpful, and I think you just helped somebody just now.
Never. I am useless. No, but honestly, I feel like I hope this conversation 3 months from now, it seems the gut in my feeling is better, but I'm trying to think if I felt that 3 months ago.
Dude, honestly, when you were saying that, I was thinking that it's like extremely hard to sound intelligent naturally, like genuinely.
No,
Like
you do.
I don't. I think that's just you like hearing that. I think
No.
a lot of people listen to you and think this person sounds intelligent. Um, but I think a really good example is like Jordan Peterson, because this person is extremely intelligent, and I think people who try to say he's not. It's very interesting to me, truly. Like I've read his papers. I'm like, damn, that's crazy. From his writing, whatever. And the amount of people who listen to Jordan Peterson and say he sounds fucking stupid is a lot. And if you tried to get those people to speak equally as eloquently, I think they would sound 100 times dumber. And my point is that I'm trying to make is that, like, even I think extremely intelligent people can not be able to communicate their ideas in like the best or clearest way. And I think sounding intelligent is something that's actually like really fucking hard to do. Like even some of the top experts in the world, I feel like when I listen to them on podcasts, I'm like, they didn't communicate that very well. But I think it's a very hard thing to do, is to sound intelligent, like to take what's in there and get it out here very well. It's very difficult. So I don't feel like it's something you should be judging yourself for, is like, am I not as intelligent? And like, honestly, the most beautiful thing you could do is listening to yourself and be like, damn, I sound stupid. I think the time where you listen to yourself and you're like, oh, I sound fire there, to some degree, maybe you really were cooking and that's fucking awesome. But I think to a more objective degree, that also means that you have not learned that much more than that current version of yourself to be like, oh, that sounds kind of dumb. Because like, we're not spitting truth. Like, we're so half-baked in everything that we know, that ideally when we become more baked in it, we can look back and I could be like, damn, bro, I didn't know that fucking Carl Jung quote off the top of my head. That's crazy. Or like, damn, I thought the fucking Tao Te Ching was written by this. That's not true. Like, that's crazy. Or I stuttered so much there. So I don't know. I think it's also like kind of if you take that perspective, it's a good thing.
I just guess like I've been striving towards like being wise, whatever that means, is definitely something I strive towards. And perhaps like that in itself is actually the thing that needs to be observed. Like why? Like what does it mean to be wise? Two, why is that what you're striving for? And like perhaps the dissatisfaction comes from that. Because I mean that is what always happens, right? If you set like I want to be this, and then every time you watch something about yourself and you no longer feel that way, that's like when, yeah.
I was just going to say, I think maybe that relates to what I was saying earlier about do you want to be wise, or do you want to look like the caricature of wisdom? Like, do you want to be what wisdom is in its truest, most self-created sense? Or do you want to be wise in the sense of like what you believe is wise, which is maybe when you hear Sadhguru talk or whoever, they sound so like they're cooking and you're like, oh, that's what wisdom is. Wisdom is somebody who, like, when they say some shit, it sounds fucking deep. When like, that's probably maybe 5% of wisdom, 2% of wisdom, 3% of wisdom. But wisdom is maybe so many more things. And wisdom is the ability to like sit for 10 days and like enjoy time with your mom and like be present with that, happy with that. So that's also the same thing with like my presence thing, where I was like, oh, I'm not present because I'm not looking like what presence is. And you're like, oh, I'm not wise because I don't sound how wise sounds in this moment. But like, I think there obviously are more objective metrics of what wisdom is, but I think the more you try to discover what wisdom is for you, I think the more you'll be able to actually be like, oh, like that's not the fucking barometer of wisdom.
Good way to tie it all back. This conversation was fire, dude. It does feel that
way.
Like, I guess, like the way I'm saying fire, I guess, based on what you just said there, not fire from the sense of like we said something really great, but fire from the sense of like how I feel leaving the conversation, you know? I felt very present. My brain actually did not go anywhere else except literally paying attention to you and like messing around with this piece of string under my chair. Like, that's it. Those are the only two things that I have been focused on this whole conversation.
Yeah, I feel like our worlds merged, and it always starts off a bit like, obviously, like, the worlds are very far apart, but it's the practice is can you pull it together? And I think sometimes it starts, I'm always like, fuck, I might not be able to like converge the two, but it always does get there if you sort of stop think on trying to converge.
Also movies, dude. Also movies. Like the thing you said earlier was so fire, where it's like a good movie watcher is one who's able to lose himself in the world. One thing I have a hard time with is losing myself in the first 10 minutes. But if you sit there, I'm watching this Tamil movie with my mom. I had a hard time sitting through the first hour, but all of a sudden, some point in the middle of the story, like I was kind of excited to go watch it later today. I'm like it is allowing. Yeah, I mean, maybe we can talk about that next time, of just like, what is that process? When does it happen? What do you have to be patient for,
And it's like meditation. It's the exact same thing, dude. The first like 10 minutes of meditation is just you literally trying to stop your thoughts. Like, it's that fucking transition process between like self and non-self. And like, yourself doesn't go without a fight. Like, it's not like yourself's like, yeah, I'm ready to fucking leave. Like, no, like yourself is like, bro, please keep me here. Like, I want to keep thinking. Like, I want to keep thinking. I want to keep thinking. And like, no, bro, go away. It's the same thing with movies, the same thing with meditation. It's the same thing with like drugs, when your drugs start to, rip you apart and you're like, like, but it's the surrender, I think, to any given moment and getting better at that really creates that sort of dynamic where you can do that well. And I guess
Nice,
getting better
dude.
each time, yeah.
Great conversation. This was episode, I think, 13 or 14. This might have been 4. No, this might have been 15, actually. This might be 15.
Hey, 15 of these, bro. We'll have to do something cool with these one day. I don't know what it's gonna be.
These are really cool. Even if we were doing it 2 a month, like, well, I mean, 2 every 2 months or every 3 months, like if that's 4 a year, like in a decade, that's 40, but like really, really like great bookmarks at different points in our lives, you know?
Yes, no, 100%, dude. Yeah, this is cool. And all I want to say, give you your flowers, as we like to do at the end of these Two Birds episodes, which is Two Birds wouldn't exist without you. I'm like 99% sure you're the person that was like, yo, we should do a podcast together. The video journals have been your idea, and I got to take that on. I feel like doing the TikTok was largely inspired by your podcast. And so the things that you're doing, on a day-to-day basis are just having very large impacts. And I think in a lot of ways, you do help through being this example of, you can live your life in this way if you like. And it comes with a whisper and not a shout. And I think that's kind of beautiful. And yeah, I think so many of the things that I'm proud of today that I do and that I know I'll look back on very happy are because of the sort of inspired things that you've done. So flowers, yeah.
That's really nice. I mean, I have some flowers to tell you too, but I've been thinking as of late, just like what San Diego, like being in San Diego for those 2 weeks, which you meant, like about to come to Kansas. I feel like spending time there, I learned a lot about your childhood. And I feel like over the years, we've both like pieced together under different parts of our like past. Like even today, Bree like sent me a picture because I was like, "Do you have any pictures
She
of
sent
mine
you
from
that? I was
camp?"
wondering where the fuck that came
Yeah,
from.
yeah,
Oh, what the
dude.
hell?
It was just like absolutely insane to see that picture, though. Like I mean, just to kind of recognize how long our lives were. I mean, when I looked at that picture, I was just like, damn, like we're older now. Like, I mean, we're no longer, I feel like mentally I still feel like a child, but I'm like
Yeah.
like not just physically like we're dying, like, but in the sense of like experientially. Like we have seen and done and experienced quite a lot of things. I mean, we're not 50 or 100 or 60 or anything, but 26, 27, 28 years of life is long. I mean, it is definitely a thing. It's been a journey. And I feel like as I get to learn more and more about your journey, it becomes really evident how like insane it is for you to be here where you are today. And I think like that is something. I met this woman at the farm, and she like, I like told her a little bit about like, doing drugs as a kid or whatever. And all of a sudden she was like, "Oh, you became a lot more interesting." Just in the sense of, I think it was whack the way she said it, but I thought it was
Yeah.
interesting that she had thought the person I was today was who I was my whole life.
Yeah, you
Right.
would have never
Which,
been able to do those
yeah,
things.
but it's just like, and that's the same thing with you. Like if someone meets you today, they would imagine you to have been brought up a certain way to,
For
unless
sure.
they, and it takes years of time, which I think is what love is, to like really take the time and effort to like get to know someone before you knew them, to like,
Mhm.
because what that does is it uncenters you from their life. It makes me realize that you have been on this planet for more than 2 decades before you met me. Like,
Mhm.
and like there are still in every day, 98% of your day has nothing to do with me. 99% of your daily basis has nothing to do with me. And like there is so much life, and for me to do that, you have to step out of your own kind of body to be like, there is life happening that has nothing to do with me. And I think as I get to do that more and more, I'm like, damn, you've like come a long way. I'm very proud of you
Yeah.
in many, many, many ways. Like not just, yeah, in who you've been, like who your mind, your anger. I mean, all these ways I feel like you've come a long way, and just like working with it and understanding it and like taking the time to be patient with yourself. So
Thanks, man.
yeah,
I'm trying to come a long way. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
Very long way. No, I appreciate that. The past is a very interesting place that I don't find myself very often. But it's been a crazy journey, man. I mean, for both of us, I'm sure everyone fucking to be here, and it's only, first quarter, first quarter,
I
start of the second.
know, dude.
And it's just like,
It's insane, bro.
it's just like if we just keep going and keep getting better, that's the thing I've kind of been frustrated with myself. I'm like, dude, like I do feel myself getting stagnant. I fucking feel it. For the first time in my life, I feel the grips of mediocrity on me. I honestly feel like I have never really felt it. Like I've always been fighting, and I'm like, like greatness. Even at the times of my life where I wasn't doing shit, I was still fighting, and that was crazy. This is the first time in my life where I'm like, man, it's kind of tiring, bro. Like, just kind of living a chill life just seems like just chill. And maybe that's because I feel like I'm doing a lot. And that probably is honestly the reality of it, is when you are doing a lot, like chillness sounds great. When you're doing nothing, you're like, I want to be so great. But
You must be burnt out, bro. PhD is exhausting.
I heard, yeah. I don't know if I'm burnt out, but I think having trouble doing everything I want to do well. And I think there are character traits about me that are being called to change desperately if I want to become this person. Like really,
Waking
like
up at 11. So I think it starts and ends there, dude.
Dude, it starts and ends there, Gautam. It starts and ends there. It starts and ends there, dude. And I know you gotta understand how defeating it's been to want to do that and not be able to do it. That's where it's honestly been like, damn, if I can't wake up early, I actually don't think I'm going to be able to live this life that I wanted, which is a crazy condition to set. But it's just like the efficacy, the ability to create change feels very low. And bro, every day I'm like, bro, tonight's the night, dog.
Dude,
We're
I
gonna
feel
wake
this,
up
bro.
early.
I understand this 100%. I mean, I have it just with something else, just not waking up.
It's yeah. So yeah, that one's been very tough. But I feel like if I can beat that one, I actually think my life will drastically take some different changes. And I think I just have to put all my effort into it. And I think that's what I've been avoiding, because I know if I set a rule, if I tell myself Mylon will wake up every day at this time for the next 3 weeks, I know I will do it. But the thing is, my life will suffer because I'll be tired, I'll be fucking groggy, I'll be this, and that shit sucks. But I have this feeling of like, I did it, which, what fucking day is it? All right, bitch. Starting Monday till the end of July, I have to wake up at 9 a.m. I'm setting that rule. Fuck.
Satya does this thing where him and Kumar, he'll pay Kumar $10 every time he wakes up past a certain time. But he tries to wake up at 6 o'clock. So if he wakes up anytime past 6, he pays Kumar 10, and he never pays Kumar. He never ever wakes up past, he did it one time because we were all together and we are messing around all night, and he paid Kumar. He is very honest about that. But you see how long this hair is right now, bro?
Hey, I did see how long. I was honestly kind of expecting to be fresh shaved. That's
Hey.
crazy. That's at least, that's a cool 5 days. That's a cool 5 hair,
5-6 days, I think. Yeah. That's in
That's great. I know you're
and
itchy, bro. I know you're fucking trembling under that table.
No, it's dude, it's the interesting thing is what you said earlier, where it's even when we know all of our dreams and goals and everything hinge on just one behavior change, the fact that we still can't make it is so I don't know what that says. It says something about either the behavior, it says something about our desire for the goal. It says something about one of those two. I'm not sure which one it says more about.
Damn. Well, I'll read one last word before we go.
Yeah, of course, dude.
That wraps up what we're saying. Ennuement, the bitter sweetness of having arrived here in the future, seeing how things turned out, but unable to tell your past self. Ennuement, my friends. Thanks for listening on today's episode.
I found one word too that I thought you'd like. It's from Two Live Crew. The Two Live Crew. I don't know. The word is miso.
Miso.